Hello, Widowhood. Our guest today is Miss Kelly B. Hunter, and I want to read her bio for you to make sure that you get all this good information. Kelly B. Hunter is a financial freedom strategist, financial literacy author, advocate, and educator, board/FCRA certified personal and business credit professional, Freddie Mac certified smart trainer, and multi-state licensed life insurance, health, and annuity producer. She is the founder and CEO of Winning Credit Solutions, as well as Kelly B Protects Me. Ms. Hunter is the host and content creator of Winning Credit Solutions, a weekly podcast. On the program airs on Red Ink Live. She currently serves as the director of financial literacy program with What About Us, which is a New York-based nonprofit, serves foster care, youth transitioning out of New York foster care systems. Ms. Hunter has written financial literacy curriculum for the largest foster care agency in New York City and is currently writing a curriculum for SAAS training program. Ms. Hunter also serves as a treasurer of the Financial Committee Chair in Monroe County branch of the NAACP. Kelly is a mother, a grandmother, cancer conqueror, widow, and now the CEO of a thriving financial service firm. Kelly works predominantly with single parent professionals and mamapreneurs to help them design a non judgmental, holistic 5-step game plan to take their finances from flawed to freedom. It is in the sum of her unique life experience, Kelly's willingness to share her triumphs through suddenlies of life and enable this dynamic woman coach her clients through the importance of being prepared, proactive, and protected. Let's get into this conversation with Kelly B. Hunter.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Widowhood. My guest today is Miss Kelly B. Hunter. I like saying her name. It's like B. Hunter. It just pops right out. Kelly and I go way, way, but I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we'll jump right into it.
Sure. Hey, Miss Tina. As Tina said, I'm Kelly B. Hunter. Tina and I met in a widows group after the passing of, I think I was there first, and then Tina came very shortly thereafter. And so before we started the conversation or recording the conversation, Tina asked if I was okay with how I became Kelly B. Hunter, the financial freedom strategist. And that really was my husband's passing was the catalyst for me wanting to start my business. And the interesting thing was we had decided that my husband was going to retire that December 2016. That December, that was going to be it for him, which took about 2 years for me to even convince him that it was time for him to retire. And so but he wouldn't retire with his full pension or whatever. And I said, okay, well, my son is going to off to college and I'll have more time and I'll need something to do. And so Maurice purchased a business for me. And I thought that I was going to be making these personalized children's books, which were amazingly cute, right? So I was making them for friends and family, really, really cute. And then life changed and I decided that was not going to do it for me. And going through grief therapy and, counseling and meeting all of these amazing women who were in the same situation, having lost their husbands, but they had been stay-at-home moms, or they were home raising their children and taking care of their homes and doing all this stuff. I came to understand that my financial circumstances were very different than most of the other women that I had encountered, right? So the way that Maurice and I worked, he made the money, I spent the money. It was my responsibility to be a good steward of the money that he made. So I was very clear about where we stood financially, right? Even with his passing. But I also came to understand that that was not the circumstance for every other woman, or many of the other women that were recently became widows or suddenly became widows, right? Um, they didn't know anything about their finances. They didn't have any credit in their name. They may not have had life insurance, or they thought that the insurance policy at their husband's job was enough, and it wasn't. That would have been an accidental death and dismemberment policy that didn't pay out under the circumstances upon which he, passed. They were losing their homes. Their homes were being foreclosed on. So there was a lot going on. And so after being in therapy for 2 years, I decided that that was the work that I needed to do. That would allow me to serve in a way that would impact the greatest number of people that I could possibly, and affect more change. Children's books just wasn't going to do it.
The books were cute though. I mean, the books were adorable. I'm just saying.
The books are adorable, and I still make them for my grandchildren for occasions. I didn't do Easter books this year, right? But yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. But I was like, yeah, I could see that. It is interesting how we met in the worst circumstance in life. And here we are years later. You have taken your pain and made purpose out of it, because there is a demographic of people that you can help.
Right.
And it started with helping women, but now, if I understand correctly, you help anyone that needs your services. Is that correct?
Yes. So what I've also come to learn, because I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. But I'd had a career prior to that. I was an application support trainer. I ran help desk for law firms, very accomplished, very, my husband and I made similar money. And the joke was, who was going to make more money than the other one in a particular year, right? So when he came to me, we left Atlanta and came up to the Poconos, and he said to me, somebody's got to stay home, and it's going to be you. And that's how he said it. And I said, I absolutely am not staying home. You want me to give up my 6 figures to stay home and do what? Make beds and unload the dishwasher? I'm not doing that. That went on for a year. And I went to church one Sunday. It was in July. We had a visiting pastor. My pastor was on vacation. We had a visiting pastor. And something said, go talk to him. He had invited, right? So I went and I spoke to him, and he said, what's on your heart? And I told him, I said, my husband wants me to stay home and be the stay-at-home wife, which I'm really not, I don't want to do that. And he said, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. One is, do you love your husband? Absolutely. Do you trust him? Absolutely. Do you think that he would ever tell you anything wrong? And I said, no. And he said, so what would be the harm in trying it? Even if you did it for 3 months or 6 months, took a break from work, just try it and see, right? And if it's not what you genuinely want to do, then you don't continue. You can go back to work. So I went home from church. He didn't go with me that day because we were battling about this very thing. And I came in and I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. Don't mess this up. I didn't say that. I said something else. But
Inside, you said that though. Inside, you was screaming that.
listen, don't mess this up. It it turned out to be the greatest gift that my husband had ever given me. But I couldn't see that at the time. I couldn't see it at the time. And so I was able to stay home. My son was 9. I stayed home until Josh graduated from high school and went into his first year of college. And that was the year that Maurice passed away, his senior year of high school.
Wow. What made it a gift?
Being able to be home with my son and take care of my husband, and essentially, as busy as housewives are, we're not getting up, we're not going to business, as my grandmother used to say, right? My schedule was very much my own. I did the teen mom thing, and I, participated in the school store activities. I was the PTO mom and the football and basketball banquet mom, and I had the opportunity to do all of that with my youngest son. It was an incredible gift. It truly was.
That is beautiful. Thank you for speaking about that because when you're working with other stay at home moms that find themselves in a very different situation, you're able
Mhm.
to connect with them because you understand the life that they've been living and what's been going on. What are some of the first initial conversations with a widow that may call you or someone that realize their financial situation is not what they thought it was?
So the first thing, it really becomes kind of like a hunt, right? We're looking for things. Depending on how much information was shared between husband and wife, she may not necessarily know where the insurance policies are, or if she does know, then we're looking at the policy to determine what is the level of coverage here, if any, right? Um, I always want to talk about, do you have any individual savings? Do you have any credit in your name? How are you guys positioned in terms of credit card balances? How is that being paid down, if at all? Are there any savings? So it's really a very in-depth, sometimes intense conversation, but I really want to know where you are so we can get you to where you need to be. If you're a homeowner, do you have mortgage protection insurance? And a lot of people confuse PMI with MPI. They are not the same thing. Mortgage protection insurance protects you as the homeowner. The PMI protects the bank. And there's just so much information that's unknown, right? We're not taught these things, and oftentimes we don't find out until we're in the middle of a crisis. And so I really try to stress being prepared, being proactive, and being protected, and what that means at various stages of your life, because it doesn't mean the same thing at 30 that it does at 55. You need to look at your finances in a comprehensive way. And a lot of times we're trying to play catch up. So the first thing is we need to make sure that you're stabilized, right? What does that look like? And then we need to move you as quickly as we can, um, to where you need to be, so that the the threat of life changing drastically, or even beyond the drastic that has already occurred with the loss of your spouse.
Thank you. A couple of things you said there I'd like to circle back to.
Mhm.
One about the credit card debt. If my spouse and I are married, the word spouse, da 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 da. My spouse has credit
Mhm.
cards in his name and balances. My name is not on it. I'm not a co-signer, and he passes. What are my obligations with that? How does that work?
So you're not responsible for that.
What does that mean? I'm not responsible.
This is a difficult question because when someone passes away, it really depends on, is there a will? Is there a trust? So there are things that need to be looked at in their entirety.
Yes.
Yeah. But for all intents and purposes, if that debt was solely in your husband's name, you're not obligated to pay that debt back.
And that is a
Now that
very generic overall, not considering
yes,
those other different items. And
right,
that's
right.
important for people to know and to have an understanding of that. And
And
let me just say this, as we're having this conversation, we're having a conversation in general scenarios. When
right.
it is specific to your individual and you're saying, okay, after hearing this conversation, I think I have a few things I need to look at. You want to reach out to Kelly directly. You want to make an appointment with her and talk about the specifics of your scenario. Don't hear 2 minutes of this conversation and go out and start making decisions and doing things without allowing someone to look at your entire process. And if you work now, Kelly, now I know you're in Pennsylvania. If I live in Virginia and I try to reach out to you, would you be able to help me, or do you have someone else in your network that would be able to assist me?
Yeah. So as far as credit is concerned, as far as insurance is concerned, as far as wills and trusts are concerned, I can help you across the country. Where can I help you? No, I can help you. You just need to schedule an appointment. And as Tina said, we take a comprehensive look at your overall situation to determine what the next steps should be. I really like to caution people because it's so hard in the midst of everything that goes on after, especially if your spouse's passing was like mine, right? My husband went out to shovel snow and he had a massive heart attack. So completely unexpected, completely like I'm cooking dinner, he's shoveling snow, and my husband just never comes in to eat dinner. If it's more of a situation where there's an extended illness or in any way you can anticipate that this may lead to your husband's passing, then there's always time to put something in place, right? We might not be able to do the life insurance, but we could do a will and a trust to protect the home and protect the car and protect the retirement, right? So again, it's important to just look at the situation in its totality. And as difficult as it is to remove as much worry as you can. And I know how difficult that is because when my husband passed away, the first thing I worried about was, and even though I knew he had life insurance and I knew he had, and I knew it was like, how long is it going to take for me to get this stuff? And I have a mortgage to pay. And, you know, so, and even with that, there are some things, we can make phone calls. And I do that with my clients all the time, all the time. So you don't have to go it alone, is what I'm trying to say. And let's just take a moment, just a beat, and look at the situation and figure out what the most logical next steps would be.
Thank you. Now, you explained to us what the mortgage protection insurance is, and you
Yes.
mentioned a couple of other words, wills and trusts. What are those? And can you elaborate on them?
So, mortgage protection insurance is protection that you can put in place. It's typically a term because there's two types of life insurance. There's whole life insurance, and then there's term life insurance. Um, the mortgage protection policy is typically a term um, insurance. Um, for our mortgages are 30 years, so we would put the mortgage protection in place for the length of the mortgage, right? The length of the loan. And so should something happen to either husband or wife, that mortgage gets paid off. So that's one less thing that you have to worry about, right? Should something occur. You have options in terms of mortgage protection insurance. So depending upon what your budget will allow, you can cover the entire mortgage or you can cover a period of time. So for example, if you can afford the premiums, you can cover the entire mortgage. If you cannot, then what I typically suggest is give yourself 2 to 3 years, right? That enough to pay the mortgage for that length of time so you can get your bearings about you, figure out what you want to do. Do you want to try to stay in the home? Do you want to try to sell the home? But it doesn't put you at risk of foreclosure. So, so, so important. So important. This was something that I didn't know about when my husband passed. So I'm still paying for our home. Had I known, my mortgage would have been paid off, and that would have been one less thing for me to worry about. In terms of wills and trust, so a will is a document that just says, this is who I want all of these belongings to go to. There's some additional documents that should be included, which should be a financial power of attorney. That should also be a healthcare power of attorney, and someone who, a medical power of attorney. So financial power of attorney is the person who, should you become incapacitated or well, incapacitated, would be making those decisions for you because you're not able. Same thing with a medical, financial, and I'm sorry, medical, financial, and just a general overall power of attorney, right? So we want to make sure that those things are included. A trust is a little bit more comprehensive. And so inside the trust, you can put your home, you can put your life insurance policy, you can put various other financial instruments, right, for a greater level of protection. Everybody doesn't necessarily need a trust. It really, again, just depends on your personal situation, but there are definitely two options depending on what is most important to you. The other thing that I really want to touch on is guardianship for minor children. And the reason for that is this. So I'd like to say everybody has a plan, right? So either it's your plan, one that you design for yourself, or it's the government's plan. And so if you don't put a will, a trust, guardianship in place, who is going to be making those decisions for you in your absence or in your incapacitation, right? Especially when it comes to our minor children. Now, if there was a bitter divorce, if the other parent, I mean, we could describe it as whatever, but if that's not where you want your children to go, should something happen to you and you don't designate guardianship before something happens to you, then a judge is going to be making all of these decisions. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to look immediately to the other parent. You having, the choice, that wouldn't be your first choice. But if you don't establish guardianship ahead of time, there's going to be a fight there.
Thank you. That's a really good point. As you spoke about the government's plan versus your plan, how does the word probate fit into that same concept?
So if you don't have a will, if you don't have a trust, if you don't have any of these things together, then you're going to have to go through a process called probate. Depending on where you live, that could take whatever period of time. You do have to hire an attorney to do that. You do have to go through the court system and pay court fees to get that accomplished. And we all know that if it's not our plan, we're not going to be happy with it. Or most likely, we're not going to be happy with it. So the best thing to do, as difficult as it is to have these conversations and to make these decisions and to sit down and put these things in place, once they're done, I say to my clients, once it's done, right? Now, should life change life is lifing all the time, almost daily, sometimes minute by minute, right? So the great thing about having this in place is you can call me and you can say, hey, Kelly, we've moved into a new home. I want to make some changes to the trust. or the will. Great. I do that. You pay me one time, and we do an annual review every year by default. If we don't do an annual review, that means that you're calling me and saying something about my life has changed, right? And so I need to make changes to my plans. The fact that I can offer that service to my clients, for me, has been amazing, because people don't want to sit down with an attorney, so to speak, to do this. And up until now, that was really the only option. You had to hire an attorney, and who knows what he or she was going to charge you. And every time life happens, you've got to pay them again. I love that I can offer this service to my clients, because it's the one thing that we don't do. We may do all the other stuff. We may do we may, right? And that's a big may. We might do the life insurance. We might have the retirement in place. But when it comes to that will and that trust, what we hesitate in ways like just put the pro and procrastination all across the board, and we don't get the thing done. And it's so much easier for me to just sit with you, and it literally is a conversation. And I ask you questions about family, and who do you think, this is funny, but who would you want to be your financial power of attorney? And families always start with who they don't want to do certain things, to who they do want to do the thing. But it's helpful to me in terms of being able to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together. And I want to say this too, Tina, because it's just been coming up so often. When we talk about, why as women, and particularly women of color, right, we don't have the level of financial acumen, we don't have any of the things that we should have, or we have some of the things that we should have, but not all, and why we hesitate to do these things, right? I am just of the opinion and belief, and my clients bear this out, is that we've been so miseducated in terms of our finances that it's not about financial literacy, it's about financial illiteracy. That is the epidemic. And so you can't just focus on the one thing. It can't just be, I'll get my credit together and then life is grand. It can't just be, I get the life insurance and life is grand. It can't just be, I have the 6 months of savings and life. No, it is all of it. It's all of it. You cannot just focus on the one thing. It has to be a holistic, comprehensive, in-depth approach to putting all of the pieces together for you and your family, and what that needs to look like for you. Everybody's goals and objectives are not the same in terms of their finances, right? But you can't just look at the one thing. You have to look at the entire picture.
That is extremely true. And we do suffer from what we don't know. One other piece, how does Social Security, or if it does play a role in what you're discussing, if my wife, I'm a husband, my wife passes, and we actually had different roles. I stayed home and took care of the children. She was making those six figures, and she passes. What does that look like, or how does Social Security play into that process?
Yeah, so this is another thing, because, and Social Security is quick with it, okay? When one spouse passes, if the two of you are collecting Social Security and one passes, one of those checks goes away. It's usually the lesser amount goes away. The remaining spouse will continue to receive the greater amount of the two. But here's the problem. It goes away immediately. So you don't have a moment to gather yourself, right? And if you based your lifestyle on those two incomes, albeit Social Security, how do you now handle with the finances with just the one, right? And if there's no additional pension, if there's no retirement plan, right? All of the things that we're suffering from in this country, or your 401k took a huge loss, and so you haven't looked at it because you didn't feel that you needed to look at it, and you realize you lost 30, 40, $50,000 in your 401k. How do I put this together? Something to absolutely, be aware of. And if you don't have any retirement planning, let's have that conversation, because Social Security, I haven't looked on the SSA.gov website, but I think the last time I looked, it was only funded through 2066 or 2067. So who knows what kind of shenanigans they're going to play, with that. But if I can advise you in any way, it would be don't depend on it, and make sure that you have your own retirement planning in place. Make sure that even if life insurance is offered through your employer, make sure you own your policy. I read an article the other day that AT&T, for prior retirees, they were getting rid of the life insurance policies for their retirees. So this is something that as an employee, they offer as a benefit, and you pay into for however many years you worked with that company. And then you retire thinking, I've got, the lay of the land covered. And then all of a sudden you don't. So now how are you on a fixed income at a point in your life where earning is really not a priority anymore? You did that already, right? So now what do you do? The best thing that I can advise is that you make sure that you own your own stuff. Own your insurance policies, own your retirement. 401k is not a retirement plan. I know that's how it's marketed, but it is not. And make sure that you have these things in place. And if you're not sure, what you need to have in place, how do you put it in place now? What are your options? Then we can absolutely have a conversation.
Thank you. A couple of things I want to circle back to that. I've heard that, let's say I'm 52 when my husband passes, and I was the lesser breadwinner. And been told that if I wanted to draw his Social Security, I have to remain single. I could not remarry by the time I turned 60. So is there truth in that?
There is truth in that,
Hmm.
because those benefits are widow's benefits. So if once you remarry, you're no longer, you're always a widow, but technically, right, legally, you're no longer a widow. So you wouldn't be entitled to his benefits anymore.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm clear. So I'm a widow always a widow, not saying conceptually, talking about how how the Social Security Administration sees it.
Right.
So I'm a widow at the age of 52, and I don't remarry. I turn 60 and I asked to start drawing 60 or 62. What is the age that I can start drawing Social Security?
Well, you can start drawing at any time.
Okay.
60, 62, 65. I believe it's 62.
62 for this particular, like,
Yeah.
not disability, but just
Yes.
so I
Yeah.
reached 62.
Hmm.
Let me back up. I'm 52 when my husband passes. I'm now at
Yes.
the age of 62 where I want to start drawing Social Security, and I want to draw what he had because he made more than me. At 62, I remained a widow the entire time. I then can contact the Social Security Administration to start drawing Social
Yes.
Security. He
Yes.
passes
Yes.
again, different scenario at 50. I'm 52. I remarry at 60. When I turn 62, I contact the IRS, I'm sorry, the Social Security Administration, and ask to start drawing my husband's Social Security. They're going to tell me no, because I've
They
now
are
remarried to this person.
remarried.
Okay.
Correct.
That is really important. I have literally talked to people who will not get remarried until they have turned 62 and started drawing their late spouse's income, Social Security, before they will enter into a marriage. People have made and some people don't have much but Social Security when it looks
Right.
as far as retirement. And so that is a huge thing for people to know. Some people are shocked when they go to Social Security and realize that they are the process of them getting remarried into that income. You talked about also different things to have, and we talked about the whole picture as far as what is retirement. I know you can't lay out because you don't know this person's income and that person's income, but what are some general legs of things you need to start thinking about? And I want to preference it this: there's a person listening who doesn't, they're listening because their friend's spouse passed. They're a young couple and they're hearing this and going, financial awareness. What are some things that I need to start thinking about if we've just gotten married and we're not even on that part of the road of someone being deceased and we're in the planning stage?
That's an amazing question. So the best thing that I can suggest is one, regardless of, whether you're single, married, widow, make sure your personal credit is together, because you never know when you may need to access your personal credit. That's not to say that you need to acquire a bunch of credit cards and run them up, because that's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is having access and availability to credit should you need it, because you never know what's going to happen, right? So that's the first thing. For young couples, you absolutely want to make sure that you have life insurance in place for both of you. Even if, the wife is staying home, caring for the children, and probably especially if she's staying home and caring for the children, because if something should happen to her, how are you going to now do all of the things that she does? You're going to have to hire somebody to do that stuff. And is that coming out of your salary when it wasn't coming out of your salary before? Depending on the age of your children, you may be paying tuition for them to go to daycare or go to, primary school, right? But if there's a life insurance policy in place, you can hire a housekeeper once a week or once every 2 weeks. You can hire somebody to help with laundry. You can hire, even if it's for a short period of time. So you want to make sure that you have life insurance in place for both of you. Especially if both of you are working, you want to at least have your individual salaries. And there's various ways to calculate how much life insurance is needed, right? So you could do 10 times. There's a dime formula, which is your debt, your income, your mortgage, and then education. And we put all of that together and figure out what that number is and base the life insurance face value on that number. There's various ways to calculate how much is needed. Again, that's an individual kind of thing, right? So life insurance for both spouses, the credit should be in place for both spouses. If you own a home, you definitely want a mortgage protection policy, as I said before, even if it's for a shorter period of time based on, what your budget can allow. You also want to make sure that you start planning for retirement early, because there's a cost of insurance always. And the younger that you are when you apply for life insurance, the less expensive it's going to be. Life insurance gets really expensive as you get older. So retirement, and then you definitely want to make sure that you have a will and a trust. And if there's minor children involved, you want to have a guardianship plan in place. And then you need to fund that guardianship plan, because if one or both parents are deceased, how are the children supposed to be educated? How are they going to be cared for until they turn, reach the age of majority? So all of these things need to come into play. But it's a lot easier to do it when you're younger, and it's a lot less expensive to do it when you're younger.
Going back to that word procrastination, what do you find are some of the challenges that keep people from doing what something like this and they know that would benefit them? What are some of those hurdles that you have to deal with clients?
So for young people, and it's sometimes a challenge for me because my children grew up with me and they watched me go through life, so they get it. So my son is having his first son, and we've had the conversation about making sure that there's life insurance in place, right? No resistance, no pushback, no nothing. But when I talk to other young people, it's like, I don't need to do that right now. No, you need to do it like yesterday because you're a day older today than you were yesterday. And believe it or not, the cost of insurance continues to increase. It doesn't get less expensive, it always gets more expensive. So that's something that you want to consider. When I'm talking with, you know, older people, depending on what their life experiences have been, they may have some predetermined ideas about what life insurance really is. And so sometimes I hear things like, nobody made it easy for me. I'm not putting anything in place, which I don't understand. Um, and the fact that nobody made it easy for you is exactly why you should put something in place. Because if you have the opportunity to do it and you have the finances to do it, why wouldn't you do it? And there's all kinds of policies with all kinds of premium amounts. You know, I have sat and worked with clients and gone back and forth. I don't believe in selling products. I believe in providing solutions, right? And there's a difference because I could work with one carrier, whether that's the right carrier for my client and their particular scenario, and just say, here you go. I've never done that. I don't think it's not ethical. And it's not in the best interest of the client. So I work with a number of different carriers who provide various solutions. And I'll give you an example. I had a young man, very young man, 38. He's a truck driver, which is a fairly dangerous profession. He's also, he weighs 400 pounds. And so the first policy that I attempted to, get him approved for was declined. And so I said, let me get back to you. I had to find another option for him. Fortunately, I was able to find another option. But what I think people don't really understand is that there's an approval process that takes place when it comes to getting life insurance. And so there are some factors that need to be considered. Your personal credit comes into play. There's something called, they also take into consideration any legal challenges that you may have had, right? So if you've had a DUI or a DWI, if there's a history of some kind of drug abuse, right? And that would only be documented through your physician. Your height and weight, any meds that you're taking might exclude you. If you are a insulin dependent diabetic, certain carriers they're called knockout questions. They'll knock you out of the realm of approvability. And so it's important that you know that when you're applying, that when we have the conversation that you're being honest with me, because they're going to find out anyway. They underwrite, right, your policy all along the way. As I'm doing the application, they're behind the scenes underwriting your application. And at any given time, if they pull data that says something a response that you gave me was not accurate, they're going to decline you. And being declined multiple times presents a whole nother set of issues. So it's important that people understand that you can't just buy life insurance, that you must go through an approval process. 9 times out of 10, a broker like myself can get you a policy, but I need you to be honest with me and let me know what's going on so I can determine who not to even apply, right, ahead of time. But you got to, I can get you there because he had been declined, I don't know how many times before. And he was skeptical about even applying this time. And I said, I'll find you something. It may not
Nice.
be, yeah, it may not be exactly what you want, but we will get you some coverage until you can drop the weight. And he was honest with me. He said, I'm going to the gym, I'm eating better. The goal is for me to drop 100 pounds by next year. Great. Let me get you something and then we'll work on the retirement because that's a whole nother situation. But yeah, you want to make sure your personal credit is together. You want to make sure that you have the life insurance. You want to make sure that you have a will, trust, some kind of estate plan. It could be a basic estate plan, right? For the time being. If you have minor children, guardianship is an absolute must. And then we need to figure out how we're going to provide for those children should something happen to one parent or both parents.
Nice. Very good. Thank you. Those are some things that will be helpful. So when they start having the conversation, they're not in a shock. These are some things that we need to talk about, and it helps with that planning. If my spouse died recently and I found out we don't have any life insurance and I didn't work and I'm literally at the point of losing the house, what should I be thinking at this point from your perspective, things you know?
The first thing is going to be you need to get on the phone with the mortgage company and find out, do they have any plans available to you? What what does that look like? And so you want to start reaching out and making phone calls. That's the very first thing that you want to do. And if you want help with that, because sometimes it's in the midst of all that's happening, you may not know all of the questions to ask. And sometimes when we make those phone calls, people are speaking to us in a way that's not very caring. It's not with a genuine level of care or concern. And so I'm definitely available to help you through that process if that's something that you need at this point in time. I do have a widow. She's now taking her life insurance exam. And so that's something that I can absolutely offer to anyone who is trying to figure out. So I was a stay-at-home mom. I've got to make some money. I don't want to lose everything. What can I do? And you know, that's an option. So I can help you pay for your license. You have to do the work, okay? But I'm here to help mentor, guide, educate all along the way. And there's one young lady that's doing that right now.
That is important to know because one, the thing you talked about having someone to walk side by side with you for widows and widowers, that Kelly and I unfortunately know all too well that shock, that mental fog. And there are people that are not always trustworthy offering to do things to serve themselves and not to serve you. So,
Right.
is there a accreditation process or something for me to know that how I can trust somebody to that level?
So I can tell you for me, when it comes to the credit side of my business, I am a CROA compliant credit repair organization. So there are, laws and ethics and values that I must abide by. I must operate my business in a certain way, or I lose my accreditation. The same thing with my life insurance license, so life, health, and annuity in multiple states. You have a fiduciary responsibility to serve your client and not yourself. And so I people ask me all the time, why do you spend so much time with your clients? Why do you, and these are clients who I've sat with and we've had conversations and they've called me at, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning because stuff is happening or they can't sleep or whatever the case may be. And if I'm up, I will respond. And they say, why do you do that? Because I've been where you are. I know what it feels like to be up in the middle of the night trying to figure it out. And there's nobody who really understands because they haven't walked in my shoes, but I have. So I've been a single mom. I've been a single working mom. I've been a divorced mom. I'm a cancer survivor. So I've had some health challenges as well. So all of these are things that make it easy for me to relate to the people that I serve. And try to do it in a way that I try to do it in a way that I would have wanted someone to be a bit available for me going through that particular situation or circumstance that I did not have. And I promised myself that that's the person when I started this business that I would become to honor my husband's legacy.
I ain't got no more questions on that. Thank you, ma'am. I checked it on my list. My question to you, what would you tell younger Kelly 30 years ago, knowing what you know now?
So younger Kelly was very different. Younger Kelly was, she was coming in hot on a, a regular. Since I've had my grandchildren, oh my goodness, the loves of my life. It's really important to me how they see me, how they view me, how they hear me, how they understand me, and how they feel me, right? I wish that I was this person 30 years ago, but I couldn't be because I had to go through all of the things to get here, right? So I would give younger Kelly tremendous grace because she was operating with what she had, what she knew, right? And she knew some of this because I've been doing credit repair for 30 years. It wasn't a business for me though. It was, hey Kel, this is going on. What do I do? Because I always understood how important it was. Always. And always made sure my credit was together. But I would give younger Kelly grace. I would. I would give her grace. Not be so judgmental, not be so hard on her. Um, and just love on her more. Yeah, that's what I would tell her.
That is some solid advice. That's solid advice to give to anyone that is listening to this conversation and they're going, "Oh my gosh, I haven't done any of this. What's going to happen to me?" And they're freaking out. Give yourself some grace. You can only work with what you know. And now that you know this, you get to talk to Kelly B. Hunter and get a little bit wiser from all these things that she knows in credit solutions, because this is empowering men and women to be able to leverage what you learned over all that time to be able to
Absolutely.
position themselves to be ready for life to start lifing. I know we've talked about a lot. Are there some things
Exactly.
that you feel like we may have missed or feel like are some crucial items that you want to make sure we also consider?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Tina. And, these conversations are just so incredibly important. They're difficult conversations, but we need to have them more often. And we need to be okay with having them more often. And we need to be really transparent about how we share this information, right? Because, for me, I talk to my children about this stuff all the time. I talk to well, he's 6, but, one of his mantras right now is, don't swipe. Like, so if he sees his parents using the debit card and they're swiping, he's like, grandma says no, no swiping. Where's your cash? Right? So, so my daughter will say, I'm sick of you and him. However, you're not supposed to be swiping. Okay. So he's just telling you what you already know. So, so, so important. And include our children. Like, don't hide money and finances and struggles from our children. Don't do that. They need to understand this is the household budget. So when you're asking me for this, I don't know, what is a game system now? The $700 game system, whatever it costs. Listen, it's not in the budget. We can save for it. It's going to take this amount of time. We may need to give up some other things. We might not be able to make the Chick-fil-A, after the game every Saturday. We may not be able to, get new sneakers once. We may not be able to do those things. So we need to learn how to prioritize, right? Our money and include our children in those conversations.
That is,
Include them.
yes,
So
that is great. I remember when our son was younger, he wanted, whatever the latest game system was. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way that I'm spending money for that. Of the other different things we were trying to save for college and do this and that. And I remember telling Alexander, we cannot buy that, but I can help you. So, and how the help was anytime he had a birthday or Christmas, if he saved up the money for that, I would help him along the way in managing his savings. And now the savings was
Right.
at home, like in a little jar, but by the end, it took him a year. But at a year, he went to GameStop and he had all those singles and all that money he was pouring out to buy that game system. He took care of that game system
And
because
that is my point. Yes.
he had a vested interest. I remember there was a woman coming back going, "You making him spend his own money on that game
Yes,
system?"
ma'am. Yes, I
Uh,
am.
I just looked at her and I looked the grown child that was standing next to her and she was pouring out her money. I just turned away because I was like, you've already made your decision. And he paid for that game system. He paid for like one game. And then they asked did he want insurance on the game system. And he looked crushed because he had no more coins, nothing left.
Money.
And he's like, I can't buy it now. And I was like, I will buy that insurance for you. And it wasn't that we could not have purchased the game, but what was it? That's money that you have extra. And for him to take in that process was the beginning of him realizing it costs to be able to do stuff. His ability to take care of that game and do everything else came from him having some skin in the game. We do our
Exactly.
children a disservice by not
Service.
making them part of that process early on. Not that they have to, it's not a burden, but it's a gift that we are giving to them and helping them to be able to learn and to be able to do that. So thank you for mentioning about our children. So I know you're
Absolutely.
doing credit, Kelly B. Hunter Credit Solution. What are some other things that you are doing?
Amazing. So yeah, Winning Credit Solutions was the start of it for me. Kelly B Protects Me is the life insurance side of my business. So I guess I got licensed in 2019, a year after. I have a book coming out in May. I participated in an anthology project that very much speaks to um, why I started my business, how my husband and I met, that story, our story, our beginning, and
May, like next month, May?
yes, like next
Like
month,
May
May.
2023. I'm sorry. I'm not sure when this will air. So let me just be clear. Not May 2024, but like their
Oh,
days
May
on
20,
days.
yes,
Okay.
yes, May 2023. I have a new grandson coming also May 2023, May 9th to be exact. So Grandma Chronicles Part 3. So really excited about that. My son Joshua is having his first son. What else do I have going on? Strategic partnerships that have been amazing in this first quarter. So look for some foreclosure prevention workshops and strategies and things like that because there's a lot coming down the pike. And I don't want to see people losing their homes at the rate that they have been. So um, that's coming and some other things, but I
Okay.
can't, I
You
can't
won't
give
have
it
to give
all.
it all yet. If I want to
Yeah.
get in contact with you, how does that work?
So you can call me. The phone number is 833-946-9467. 833-WIN-WIN-7. That makes it really easy. My email address is kelly@winningcreditsolutions.com. My website is winningcreditsolutions.com. Kelly B Protects Me is the same thing. It's kelly@kellybprotectsme.com. And the website is kellybprotectsme.com. So,
And if you didn't get all that and you're hitting play and play, you can look down in the notes of the podcast, or you can go to our website, widowhood-real talk with Tina.org. And in the blog will be the information to be able to contact Kelly also. Kelly, thank you so much for having this conversation. It has been wonderful.
thank you, Tina. It has been wonderful.
Yes, that was very informative. And yes, Kelly and I are friends. But I wanted you to know Kelly the professional. I wanted you to get to see who she is and what she has to offer. She is also part of the widowhood, so she understands the importance of the decisions that you need to make and the gravity and how they impact your life. So I encourage you to look at the information in the blog, reach out and contact Kelly and help make your situation a little bit better every day. Thanks for being here. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.